Ruhl, aka MegaBlitzz, and today's video we're going to be looking at and breaking down the top 8 deck lists from Knoxville Regionals. I actually had watched all of Knoxville Regionals, and I really enjoyed my time watching it. But before we jump into that top 8 decks, don't forget to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, especially if you're enjoying the content I'm making so far here on the channel. Alrighty guys, let's jump right in to the 8th place deck list. Alrighty guys, and here we are with that 8th place deck list. We got Lost Tina. I'm not gonna spend too much time on Lost Tina. It's kind of already figured out the perfect 56, really, to be honest. You can add different tech cards depending on what you think the meta might look like. So you can play like Avery or Manaphy or Spirit Tome. Some people play all three in the deck. This person decided just to play Spirit Tome. Maybe expected Mew to be well represented. Maybe you have to deal with a lot of Charizard. Spirit Tome helps out with that Charizard matchup pretty early on in the game, being able to slow down that instant charge from that Rotom. And also slowing down Lumineon as well, so they can't like Lumineon find Arven or anything of that nature. So other than that, though, this is pretty much the copy-paste 60 we've been seeing. I would have liked to see maybe an Avery in the deck. I think Avery's just too good of a card to be playing right now, especially with all the top decks we have. Being like Gardevoir and Charizard and other Lost Tina, Avery is really kind of like bridges that gap, being able to slow your opponent down. You get some extra cards along the way and kind of establish a little bit early on pressure, especially if you're already like at 4 and you can just attack with Cramorant a second time. Playing that Avery can be very helpful. So very nicely done here with that 8th place list. Love seeing Lost Tina. Wish it could have gone 3 for 3 and win 3 regionals in a row, but 2 wins in a row is still really, really good, and we still managed to get one in top 8. So very nicely done here. Going into 7th place deck list, we got Roaring Moon, not quite like Turbo Moon per se, because it's a little bit more catered to the long game as well. Playing, you know, Ancient Booster Energy Capsules, playing Town Store, playing like Pal Pad and things like Judge and things of that nature. It's a little bit more catered to try to help you in the later game, as opposed to a different list that we're going to see where it's just like straight aggressive as fast as you can go and that kind of thing. But some of the things that I do love about this list here is Emergency Jelly. I think Emergency Jelly is a really good card in Roaring Moon, because that Frenzy Gouging is going to deal a lot of damage to yourself, and then you can heal that off a little bit with that Emergency Jelly. Town Store makes a lot of sense in this deck. I would prefer just to play 4 Pokestops and then just start trying to churn through the deck to try to find, you know, your Earthen Vessels or your Trekking Shoes or your Dark Patches and stuff of that nature. And then if you end up hitting the Pokemon, like the tools, the booster capsules, it feels a little bit bad. So I also understand where you do want to play the Town Store, but personally, I also wouldn't play this quite version of Roaring Moon. It's not quite my style per se. But I also love the Judge in here, because there are some times in games where Judge can just help you get back in the game or can harm your opponent to a point where they end up bricking a little bit. One of the big powerful things about playing like an Arceus deck is Judge Path. You know, so being able to later on in the game, just like your opponent has, you know, 15 cards in their hand, Judge, and then they end up just kind of drawing into 4 okay cards, it can put you in a position where you can come back a little bit and just try to come in that way. So definitely like it. I'm glad to see the Judge. I like the Emergency Jelly. I'm not a huge fan of the booster capsules on the Town Store, but for this list, it makes a lot of sense. And we have like 2 different Roaring Moon lists and how they play. They play similar, but also play different in a different couple ways, and we'll get into that a little bit. Going into our 6th place deck here, we got Entei Iron Valiant. Now, I did not expect Entei Iron Valiant to do good, let alone make top 8. Entei Iron Valiant is one of those decks where it's kind of like a deck people don't really talk about. It's not like a meme deck per se, because it did finish second at a pretty big tournament, and it has made day 2s and stuff, so people definitely know about the deck. But it has a couple awkward matchups. You're really dependent on that Tachyon bits and stuff. And sometimes Entei can't quite get you there with the damage you may need. But you're able to play that with like the Baby Moltres as a nice single prize attacker. Playing that with Radzard as well. Metachan to pair with that Tachyon bits to track extra turns and stuff. And then of course you're playing, you know, 4 Escape Ropes, 4 Switch Cart, 2 Energy Capsules. So you're able to move in and out quite often as well. and be able to retreat and stuff. But one of my favorite things about this list here is the Technical Machine de-evolution. I think that's a really great include in this deck, being able to just like Tachyon bits, move a bunch of like put a bunch of damage counters all over the stuff, all over things. You know, if you're playing against like Charizard or against like Gardevoir, Tachyon bits get it up to like 7 or 6, maybe even 8, somewhere in there, like between like 60 or 80, and then de-evolution and be able to take, you know, 1 or maybe 2 prize cards and slow your opponent out in the process. And if you can put that in a way where you're able to maybe try to, like, take that KO with TM Devolution and then maybe it de-evolves some of them, they don't have a rare candy, then you can follow it up with, like, a Metachamp play the following turn and take an extra turn. That's something that I had been able to pull off only one time when playing Entei Iron Valiant, being able to de-evolution, put a bunch of stuff down to like their baby evolutions, and it was like a 70 HP Charmander. I got it to 60 and I was able to Metachamp at the next turn because my opponent couldn't find a way to evolve into that Charizard again because they already burned through a rare candy twice to do so. So I was able to follow up with that and then just really take off from the game there. So it's one of the strong points about that against why I like this deck quite a bit, but I did not expect it to do as well as it did. Some of the things that I don't like per se is the 1/1 line of Bidoof and Barrel. I am more of a 2/2 line myself. Even when playing Miraidon, a lot of people kind of went down to like 1 Mareep, 1 Flaffy for like the turbo version, and it does make sense, but I feel like for this, you want to play the 2/2 line, but the problem is I don't know where you cut it. You might be able to cut the Serena, but the Serena is also like kind of a tech card in there for specific matchups, being able to try to, you know, Serena up like a Rotom or something of that nature, or just trying to get some of those clunky cards out of your hand to try to fill it up with some other things, you know, discarding those battle VIP passes, or, you know, maybe even discarding like a Lost Vacuum if you don't need it or something, or if you already used your 4 Sealstone ability, discarding the other 4 Sealstone to get it out of your hand to try to draw some more cards makes a lot of sense as well. But very nicely done here. Very shocked to see it in top 8, but I'm kind of glad that it did because it kind of reminded people that like, hey, I'm still a deck. I still exist. And the deck is really, really powerful when it can fire off on all cylinders as well. Going into 5th place here, we got Gardevoir EX. I'm not going to spend too much time on Gardy EX. It's kind of the same thing we've been seeing, you know, Baby Gardevoirs, Mirage Step Curlia, you got the Zacian, you got the Manaphy and the Jirachi to kind of save all your stuff. You got the Cresselia and the Screamtail to kind of counterbalance, I guess, because Screamtail gets countered by Manaphy, but Cresselia doesn't get countered by Manaphy. Jirachi gets countered by Jirachi counters Cresselia, but Screamtail doesn't get countered by Jirachi. So it's like they kind of go in this weird way back and forth. So I like that. That's one of the cool things this Gardevoir's got going for it. 4 Iona for that very constant disruption as well. I love the 1 worker in Gardevoir decks. I think it's a really great include, being able to discard that path, because sometimes if you can't remove that path, it can really, really harm you. So a nice timed worker can help out a lot with that, because a lot of decks play 3 path, or some decks play 4 path, and you have 4 ways to remove it if they stick path first. So if you can go, if they play path, Collapse Stadium, they play path, Artisan, they play path, Lost Vacuum, they play path again, Worker. They're out of paths, and now you're safe to Psychic Embrace as many times. So I like the fact that this deck has 4 ways to remove Path to the Peak. I think that's something that Gardevoir needs to stick to, because Path can really shut out a Gardevoir deck if you aren't able to remove it and just kind of have that Path stay there for a couple turns. It can really slow you down. So, not shocked to see Gardevoir in the top 8 here. It's a very nice deck. It's been put on the map by Tord. It's kind of been refined to the point to where people really know how to play it, know how to play against it, and the people that know how to play it well will shine when playing Gardevoir. Going into our top 4 here, 4th place deck, is we got Turbo Moon, a little bit different than the 7th place deck we saw here. This one playing like the capsules and stuff. This one not playing those capsules or anything, but going more for like a Turbo Miraidon type thing, like we had saw Andrew Mahone do in Worlds with his Miraidon list. Similar concept where this deck's trying to attack fast, it's trying to attack early, and trying to take really quick KOs. You know, playing that Pokemon catcher, try to get that Pokemon up in the active spot, playing 4 trekking shoes to get through the deck as fast as they can, you know, playing, you know, the Squawk ability, playing 4 Pokestop, and just really trying to go through the deck as fast as they possibly can to look at and see as many cards as possible to start attacking with Roaring Moon early. this is probably the go-to list that I would play if I were to play Roaring Moon. This is probably the list that makes the most sense to me. I feel like this is pretty close to what we're going to see do better than the other list. The other list is still good. It did make it in the top 8, of course. However, I just feel like that this list here is a little bit more consistent as opposed to the other one. It's got a little bit more moving pieces going on, so you got to make sure that you're utilizing those. But I feel like this list is very just cookie cutter, very fast, very aggressive. But if you're looking for more of an advanced Roaring Moon list, then I would definitely go for this here because it has more options available to you. But if I were to be playing Roaring Moon, this would be the list I go for here. Just very quick, very fast, and very aggressive. So I like this list a lot. I like the 4 Pokestop. I like the 4 trekking shoes. The Pokemon catcher's a little bit crazy. I not quite behind it yet. I think it's just ironic that we're playing Pokemon catcher in 2024, and it's a miracle. I think it's crazy, and it just makes me laugh. That's all. All right, going into our 3rd place deck here, we got another Lost Tina. This person decided to actually play Spiritomb, Manaphy, and Avery in the deck, deciding to play all of them here, cutting out of that escape rope for that extra piece, cutting out of water energy for that extra piece. Normally we see, maybe 1 Spiritomb, but not Manaphy and Avery. Normally we see just kind of one of those combination of 3, but this person decided to cut the escape rope and a water energy to add both of those. Maybe a little bit more afraid of like Chen-Pao, or maybe the mirror match of Greninja. And like I said, Avery's a really nice card when timed properly against certain decks. Can really apply early pressure against them and help you get a little bit ahead because you're drawing cards along the way. But not shocked to see Lost Tina here at all. I'm glad that it still is performing well and we're still able to change the list up a little bit, but it's going to be the core 56 like I had said. We're going to be seeing pretty much the same similar things here. I will say I definitely want to try out the list with Spiritomb, Manaphy, and Avery and just see how it feels. I feel like on paper it looks a little bit more clunky, but at the same time, if you're playing against, the mirror match, you don't need Spiritomb, so you can just put it in the Lost Zone and not really have to worry about it. So I guess it's got that going for it as well. So I'm very curious to see how this deck feels. So I definitely want to pop it in the TCG Live and change some of this stuff around and see how it feels. So very nicely done here. Going into our 2nd place list, we got like Lost Turbo Pile. I don't even know what you'd call this. It's like Lost Control, I guess. I don't know. You got the Kyogre in there, you got Dragonite in there, you got Pidgeot V, which you're able to attack with, and that Vanishing Wings ability. And then, of course, you also got, Tempting Trap Mawile, which we had actually seen on stream against, I believe it was top 8, it was 2nd seed versus 7th seed, and they were able to just, Tempting Trap their opponent out of the game, and was able to just, keep drawing a bunch of cards, and they were just like, I have more cards than you, you're eventually going to mill yourself, I'm never going to do anything, so just tempting, trap pass, trap pass, trap pass, and they couldn't do anything because they burned through the switch effects that they had. So, very unique deck here. I definitely want to try it out. It definitely looks interesting, and it feels very fun to play when pulled off nicely. Some of the things that I love about the deck is I love the fact that we still fit Pokestop in here. It's something that we had seen in old Turbo Lost Zone decks that was just playing Dragonite and Raikou and then maybe a Kyogre or something, was the fact that it played Pokestops because there's so many different items, Mirage Gates, VIP Pass, Switch Cards, Nest Balls, Rods, all these are items here. And you're able to get a lot of those most of the time off of that Pokestop, and even if you end up hitting some energies, it's fine. You play Super Rod and Energy Recycler, so you can just put them back in the deck. It's not too big of a deal. So I definitely want to give this deck a try, and it looks very fun, and I feel like putting your opponent in a Tempting Trap just lock feels really nice. I feel bad for your opponent because your opponent can't do anything, but being able to just Tempting Trap, during your opponent's next turn, you can't retreat. During your next turn, defending Pokemon takes 90 less damage from attacks, so they're going to have to do 180 to KO this, but they're pretty much locked out and they can't do anything. So it's definitely one of those cool things where when used nicely and properly, you can really put yourself in a situation where you can just kind of win the game that way, or maybe stall the game enough to put yourself in a position where you can come back into the game. So very cool deck here. Aiden Koos played it very well. Very unique deck. Definitely want to give it a shot. And just, I don't know, it kind of reminds me like that Tord Lost Pile meme that was going around for a while, all those different Lost Zone decks. This kind of seems something similar to that, where your Mawile and a Lost Zone deck, that was kind of crazy. Like, especially for me, I was like, wow, that's something I never would have thought. So very cool, very nicely done here. Going into our first place deck, Gardevoir EX, finally coming back on top, getting another W here. A little bit different of a list, deciding not to play Cresselia, but cutting that and maybe to addition for maybe some extra support tech cards. They're still playing the Mirage Step Curly as well. I'd definitely be excited to see what Gardevoir looks like once Mirage Step leaves. I think it'll change up how the deck plays a little bit, but honestly, this is pretty much the like go-to 6 that we've been seeing for Gardevoir. You know, heavy Iono for hand disruption. You got, you know, boss resort, just one boss. You got 2 counter catcher because it's more of a comeback deck, so counter catchers over boss makes more sense. You got reversal energies, you got workers, you got artisan clap stadium for a level ball and all that stuff. I like 3 rare candy. There was a list that we had seen where they only played, I think, 2 rare candy. I feel like that's a little bit more greedy. I like the 3 rare candy here, especially because once you burn through your rare candies, this one feels like a little bit more of an aggressive Gardevoir deck as opposed to the other one where it felt like a little bit more of a slow rolling Gardevoir deck, which is weird to say out loud if you think about it, because Gardevoir is a pretty long process deck, but that's kind of seems how it plays out, I feel like. So very nicely done here to our first place Gardevoir deck. Very cool. And I'm excited to see what the next regional will bring. What deck will come out on top? We've had a lot of different decks really appear on the scene and really make their mark. You know, Roaring Moon coming in and all those things. So let's jump right in to that outro, guys. Alrighty, guys, and that's going to do it here for the top 8 deck lists at Knoxville Regionals. If you guys have been enjoying this content, don't forget to leave a like, smash the subscribe button. I really would appreciate it. It was really cool as well to see all those different decks in top 8. It felt very diverse. You know, we had Roaring Moon had its big breakthrough moment. Gardevoir finally managed to come back on top and win a regional again. We had Lost Tina in there. Anti-Iron Valiant coming in there as well. We had another like turbo Lost Box pile, which was really cool. The only thing we were really missing was like some of the other big key decks would be like Charizard, maybe Miraidon or something like that. But still really cool. It was really awesome to watch that regional. Very, very great. Alrighty, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace!